Hello, Jack Delahy, founder of collegeconsulting.us here, and I think this is going to be a pretty cool YouTube video, a little time capsule, if you will. What you're about to see, actually, is a video that was filmed way back in the fall of 2023. And the reason that I want to show you this is because, as I record this now, it is the spring of 2024, and we actually have results from the film. Now, a couple things that I want you to see here. The first part is going to be my advice to a high school senior named Hope, who reached out looking for some insights and tips on not just applying to Vanderbilt, but actually because she called out her rigor, her course rigor in high school was certainly on the extreme low side when it comes to applying to Vanderbilt. You'll actually see my thoughts in that coaching video that I give her as I go through her application, essays, etc. But I think she did a really, really good job of putting her hand up, being authentic, and calling out this, what some may call, detriment. And you'll see in that video, in the fall of 2023, before she submitted her application to Vanderbilt, I say the following words. I say, there's certainly far from a guarantee, but I say, in terms of a student who has low levels of high school rigor, you've got a shot, Hope. And you'll see, I say that. Well, fast forward actually to today, and I have some amazing news. Hope is about to go off to Vanderbilt University. She just received her acceptance. She applied early decision, was then deferred, and then accepted. So she had a fairly lengthy process, and you'll hear her describe that process. But in the back half of this video, we get to interview Hope and hear her thoughts on her application process, her search process, schools that she was interested, why she chose Vanderbilt as her top choice, and ultimately why she thinks she got in. And as you'll see, she and I have very similar sentiments on that front. So I hope you enjoy this video. I think it's really cool because we'll get to see a little time portal here. If you're only interested in hearing the interview from Hope, you can scroll to that segment. But I would encourage, if you're interested in helping your high schooler set themselves up for success, if you have a 9th grader, a 10th grader, an 11th grader, check out this upcoming stage right here where you're going to see my coaching, because ultimately a lot of that coaching can help apply to your high schooler. With that said, enjoy. Hello, Hope. I hope you are doing well. Jack Delahy here. Thanks so much for your email. I reviewed your whole application, and my goodness, Hope, you are tremendously impressive. I couldn't believe this when I saw this transcript. I don't see a single B anywhere. And is it true I see one single A- ever? 2. Unbelievable. You're amazing. I gotta tell you this, Hope. You've got a shot at Vandy. You certainly do. I want to be clear. I went to Vanderbilt 2010 to 2014, I would never get in today. I was waitlisted as it was back then. Vanderbilt's an ultra reach for even valedictorians these days, but I'm telling you, Hope, you got a shot. This was about as elite of an application package as I have seen in a long time. And you know what was interesting? My very first thought when I saw the transcript was, the one downfall is going to be not like the serious rigor in classes that we like to see. But then you did what I teach all my students, which is if you have let's say, a dip in your profile, call it out, wave your hand. I teach my students this all the time. Don't hide from it. And then I read your essay, and look at what you called out at the start. This exact fact that here's why you don't see as many AP classes. Here's why you don't see as many honor classes. You did it! Anyway, I saw that and I had to smile because you did it. This is exactly what I would have coached you to do as well. I would have said, hey, call out your deficiencies, and I'm putting deficiencies in quote. You're an elite student. Absolutely elite, right? But my first thought was, if there's going to be a reason she doesn't get into Vandy, it's because the academic rigor, the seeing 10 AP classes like I have seen in some students, isn't there. And you called it out, which is awesome. That's what you should do. That says that you understand yourself, you're confident in yourself, and colleges love to see that. So you've got a shot here, though. You've got a serious shot. A couple things that I wanted to highlight. I really, really liked the essay. I liked it a lot. Something that you could consider, and I would leave this essay as your common app personal statement right now. I really would. And if you get into Vandy, ED, you're done. Don't even think about it. Something that you could consider in your regular decision round if you want. This also had the vibes of a type of kind of essay that I've seen added to the additional information section, almost as a I want to explain something section. And what that could possibly do, again, this is in the regular decision round, if you feel that you want to do this, is then leave an opening for you to use your Common App personal statement for, any other type of essay. For now, I would honestly leave it for the reasons we just said, especially on the Vandy front. I want this to be front and center, that you're calling out the fact that your rigor hasn't been as high, but also you've gotten 2 A- ever. It's amazing. All right, so I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change anything about it. Also, you're a brilliant writer. My goodness, really, really good. There's not a single thing I would change. Amazing. Then when it comes to the supplement, once again, right? I brought this up. I assume you're answering this question because Vanderbilt has 2 this year and you have to choose one. And I believe it's answering this one, right? Anyway, also fantastic. It then brought up in my mind, we talk about there are 4 main categories of admission when it comes to students and what admissions reps in college are going to view you on. 1, high school grades. 2, standardized testing, which I'll get to in a second. I assume, given everything I saw here, you're going test optional. Totally fine. 3, college essays. And 4, what we call your story. Right? Gone are the days of being just a good student and that getting you into the Vanderbilts of the world. You need to have kind of a story that you say, based on things I've done in high school, here's what I want to do at your school, Vanderbilt. And so my hope is that with your activities, right, and you listed them here, right, like working as an inclusion aide, I hope that is at the top of your activities list because it aligns with this, because it aligns with your supplement. And so my question to you, Hope, is what school are you applying to, and have you selected a major? And the reason that's important is because ideally, if you can tie in the college, right, Vanderbilt has multiple colleges to apply to, with this, what you've done, right, it all ties into a story. This notion of, hi, I'm Hope. I'm the tremendously patient person. Look, your recommender calls it out, right? Somewhere in here, your recommender calls it out. I'm incredibly patient. I care for others. I care for others who are perhaps less fortunate. And look, I also care for myself. See that story we're building? And because of all that you can see, Vanderbilt, that's why I want to major in at your school. I could see several possible majors aligning with that, but that is going to be critical, Hope. Making sure that this story, this path is clear. From this, right, how much you learned about yourself, the summary right here, it's the second to last sentence is basically it. I learned that while having goals is important, they are problematic when achieving the outcome, right? And success or failure determines self-worth. That's like the core of you now. How can you take that core and make sure Vanderbilt understands why you're choosing the major you're choosing? Or even if you're undecided, which, by the way, I applied to Vanderbilt undecided, you can at least tell Vanderbilt, I'm undecided, but I'm deciding between this major or possibly this major, and here's why. And by the way, if you're ever like, I'm just not quite positive, Vanderbilt, view it from their side. They're going to review your app for 8 minutes. Are they going to be able to see this story loud and clear? The who Hope has been in middle school to high school, how Hope has helped, what is going on. Can Vanderbilt see that story as to now the next stage is what she's going to do at Vanderbilt? Because if you do all of those things, but then you say, Vanderbilt, I just want to go to your school because, I don't know, it seems great and it's highly ranked in D1 football. Let's go, right? We can't have that. We need to finish it off. And so I just want to make sure, because I haven't seen your actual Common App, that Vanderbilt, it's very obvious for them when they review your whole app of that story. If you think, I could do a little better job explaining this whole background of myself and then transitioning it so it's served up on a platter for the Vandy admissions rep to go, it's so obvious what she would do at Vanderbilt when she gets here, how she would help, the additional information section. It's sitting there. It's waiting for you. You can use up to 300 something words, and it truly says, if there's anything else you want to tell that, right? And because Vanderbilt's your ED, you could actually put it in the Common App. You could type it all up. And then if you don't get into Vanderbilt ED, you can just, you could make the additional information section 100% Vandy specific, since it's the only school you're going to apply ED to. And then you could delete it, and you could rewrite it in general for your regular decision round that will go to many schools. See what I'm saying? Don't hold back. Make sure Vanderbilt knows the story. Again, 4 tiers of college admission: grades, test score, essay, and your story. And your story is becoming more and more and more important. Vanderbilt's admissions rate these days is, I would have to look it up, isn't it like 7% or something? And so I bring this up because you check all the boxes here. And I just want to make sure that last box is checked, where you can look your application forwards, backwards, and say, yep, Vanderbilt's going to know my story. They're going to know what I went through, and therefore what I want to do at Vanderbilt. I'd say about 3/4 of our students do that by choosing a major and then explaining why they're choosing that major or that desired path at Vanderbilt. You can even call out, right, like specific classes. You could look up the Vanderbilt curriculum and call out specific classes inside that major, call out specific teachers who teach that, to just show how much you care about your story. And I'd say about 1/4 of our students choose undecided, but you can't just choose undecided and say, I truly have no idea Vanderbilt, still take me. You've got to say, I'm undecided, but here are a couple options I have in mind to fulfill this story of mine. You've got a brilliant story. I just want to make sure it's finished. It might be. You might say, Jack, 100%, when this gets submitted to Vandy, they're going to know my story, my path to Vanderbilt, and what I'm going to do at Vanderbilt. I just want to make sure of that. And again, if you're like, I'm not sure, use the additional information section and be as clear as possible. You can look up, right, Vanderbilt education classes if you're applying to the School of Education, Peabody College, right? You can then go in and look at the curriculum. You could even call out a class that a specific teacher teaches, right? Be like, hey, here's my story, and at Vanderbilt, when I show up there, if you give me the opportunity to attend, here's the exact classes I would love to take, and here's why, because it aligns with my story. That's a really hard student to reject versus the student that's got it all, like you, but doesn't make that end goal of the story clear. Okay? Awesome. I wanted to make sure you understand that. It's exceptional. Now, the last thing that I wanted to go over, letter of rec, awesome. You've got all of this. Again, you've got to think on the extracurriculars, what aligns with your story. This aligns with your story, right? By the way, awesome. Soccer captain. Congratulations. These are all great things, right? You're a leader, etc. But you can see why I'm like, the story that you just told me, that super thoughtful Hope who's giving back to those in need, like this aligns with that story. And if your chosen major at Vanderbilt is like education, or there's several that you could fit into that mold, right? All right, then the last thing that I want to go over is standardized testing. My guess is you're applying test optional, totally fine. Just know that Vanderbilt actually, in terms of top 25 schools in the country, it takes actually a significant portion of their students test optional, meaning they didn't submit a test. If you're applying to like Princeton, I'd say, because they only take about 8% of their admitted class without test scores, meaning 92% of their admitted class last year submitted test scores. But Vanderbilt, only about 2/3, 67% of their admitted class submitted test scores. That means 1/3 of admitted freshmen did not. This is good news for you. Lastly, you can say also good news. Vanderbilt early decision. Look at how much you're increasing your chance. You're tripling your chance of admission by applying early decision. Vanderbilt takes a huge portion of their class ED. Some of this rate is inflated because they have athletes who already have guaranteed admission apply in the early decision window, but still, Vanderbilt, more than most schools, really leans into their early decision pool. So, you've got a rock star app here, Hope. You should be really, really proud. This is amazing. You got a shot. You really have a shot, and that's about, at Vanderbilt these days, that's about as good as you can ask. Really, really impressive. Well done. Feel free if you have any more questions about kind of this notion of, your story, reach back out. Let me know. Happy to answer. But I think it's just important that you feel Vanderbilt says, hey, you're going to read my app for 8 minutes on average. Let's make sure you know who I was and who I would be at Vanderbilt's campus, all the things that I would do, and how that path aligns. That wraps it in a bow and says, admissions, it's really hard to reject this student. Hope that helps. Well done, Hope. I'm proud of you. I'm super excited, everybody. I am joined here by Hope. Hope is a high school senior in Massachusetts. I'm rocking my Vanderbilt hat because Hope just got the call that she got into Vanderbilt, and I thought it'd be pretty cool to do a brief interview because I've got a video from 4 or 5 months back when she had sent over to our team her application. And to be honest, your application, Hope, kind of blew me away. It was one of the more unique applications. And I think I even say in that video, I'm like, for someone who has very few AP classes, believe I say, I'm like, you got a shot. And we'll splice that in and we'll like show me kind of walking through your application. But before we do, I'd love to hear just a little bit about your background, Hope, anything you want to tell us about us. And then I'm going to kind of ask just a few questions about your application since congratulations, you're going to Vanderbilt, which is like a 6% acceptance rate.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like definitely come from a very competitive high school. And I'd say that was definitely like something that I looked for during my college search was like finding a place that was very like collaborative. And that's definitely why Vanderbilt stood out to me. And that's definitely something I like highlighted in my application, I think was like why I want to be there. But other than that, like I definitely like I play a lot of soccer. That's a big extracurricular for me. I'm one of four, so I have lots of siblings. I don't know what else to say.
I'll ask a few questions here. So I'm interested. You're a high school senior at a competitive New England public school, which is now like a dime a dozen, especially when you're applying to top 20, top 30, top 40 schools in the US. I'm interested. Talk to me a little bit about your search process, like what schools you were considering, and obviously then how you ended up on Vanderbilt as your top choice.
Yeah, so I have two older siblings, so I've been on a lot of college tours. I'd say I looked at the Ivies as well, and the thing that I didn't like about them as much was like the competitive nature kind of I felt on those campuses was really similar to my high school. And so when I stepped on Vanderbilt, I liked that it was collaborative. I liked that it was obviously a really like high ranked good school, but it didn't like necessarily feel like that when you were on the campus. I mean, other schools that I looked at were like Northwestern, BC, Wake Forest, Richmond, like safeties like Yukon, Wisconsin, Maryland. So there's definitely a range. But yeah.
Love it. And so you ended up deciding, okay, Vanderbilt's my top choice. I'm going to do early decision there. And before you applied, and again, the viewers of this will see this, you reached out to us. We took a look at your application. And I mean, I remember it to this day, and it was many months ago because your application was so unique. And I think my biggest takeaway that I want viewers to understand is there's something valuable about just being unique and standing out. And I would say the secondary thing that was my biggest takeaway of your application when I reviewed it, where I say right on the call, you've got a shot, was that you took what I think some might call detriments in an application. Your rigor in your high school class was certainly below average for Vanderbilt standards. I think we would both admit that. And yet you did an amazing, it was such a mature thing that you did where you kind of put your hand up and you called that out instead of saying, instead of kind of like weaseling your way around it or trying to talk about other things, you said, hey, I understand that this is probably my biggest detriment. And by the way, here's why I've chosen to go through high school this way. And I thought that was really cool. Do you mind talking just a little bit kind of about that aspect of your application and how you came to terms with just kind of putting your hand up and saying, hey, I know I don't have the biggest rigor, but this is
Yeah.
what.
Definitely. I mean, I only took four APs throughout high school, and like some honors, like I would say about two honors, one, two honors each year. Um, and like I definitely prioritized like having balance and stuff and like doing well in the classes I was taking rather than like overwhelming my plate, which I think definitely I freaked out before I went to college. It's like, oh, I don't have enough APs, I don't have enough of these hard classes. But I think like you said, I it was like one of the first sentences in my Common App essay. And like the paragraph was kind of explaining like a bunch of like mundane things that like were not impressive at all. And I think them like and then I went on to explain it in like my story, but I feel like it was definitely like not a lot of admissions officers will have kids like tell them like boring things about themselves or like unimpressive things. So I think I don't know. I definitely like took a lot of tweaking with my essay to get to that point. But I was really happy with it.
Yeah, and in a way, I think what I want people to understand is like unimpressive. I'm putting in quotes because, well, yes, some might believe. I think what you put that you like to like get on the couch and watch Netflix with your mom. I think might have been one of the lines in there. But
Yeah.
I think what it did for me when I reviewed it, and this was again well before we knew you were getting into Vandy, but when I read it, I said, this is an authentic applicant. And I think these days, when you're applying to the Vanderbilts of the world, Vanderbilt admissions these days, they have to reject 94% of applicants. They're not looking for applicants who are saying, here's my application because my mom or dad told me to write it this way, or here's my what my interests are because my cousin's friend got into Vandy, and so I'm going to just say I have the same interests. Like your application was one of the most authentic I've probably ever seen. And so again, I looked at it and I said, not a lot of APs, but if there's ever anyone who without that rigor still has a shot, I think it's you. And like we'll cut to me saying that. And it's just incredible that here we are 4 or 5 months later, we're in April and you're going off to Vanderbilt.
Mhm.
I'm interested when you kind of think about your application process to Vanderbilt. I think you put this in an email to me about kind of your communication with Vanderbilt. Do you mind just extrapolating on that a little bit for like, high school juniors, sophomores, freshmen who are, whether they're in our formal program or not? I think it's important to hear from a senior who obviously just got into their dream school and like what your communication was like with your dream school before you got in.
Yeah, so I took a tour spring of my junior year. Um, and after that, like I knew that's where I wanted to ED. Like it, none of my other schools I like loved as much. And so I want to say August or September of like going into senior year, I emailed um the local like regional admissions officer, just being like, hey, like I'm planning on EDing here. Like I think I gave a few things that I was like interested about the school and what drew me to it. And then I think I asked like a specific question about I'm planning on majoring in bio, and I think I like asked a specific question about that program just to like show him like, oh, if I go here, this is what I want to do, or this is where I'm headed. Um, and then he responded and was like information about the science program and stuff, and I like just responded with like thank you and stuff. Um, and then I before I applied, I might have emailed him again. I can look too. And then after getting deferred, I sent my continued letter of interest. And I emailed that to him and the like head of admissions, and I also put it in my portal. Um, and then I emailed him one more time before like um the regular decisions came out.
Yeah, so for our viewers who don't know, so Hope was deferred early decision and then actually accepted, which some years does not happen. This year at Vanderbilt is happened more consistently. But I think what's important there is if a school is your top choice, you should let them know that in many ways, shapes, and forms. And yes, some schools, by the way, do have limits. They'll say, please don't email, please don't do this. But if they don't actually preclude you from doing that, it can only be a neutral or it can help for you to just reach out and let the school in multiple facets know, hey, this is my top choice. And in your case, right, you not only did that with admissions, you also did it with a specific professor who then it's up to them. But there's a chance that that professor goes back to admissions and says, hey, by the way, this Hope student, she obviously really cares. And like something like that can be the tiebreaker. Ultimately, we're dealing with humans in admissions. And so I think it's important that people understand if a school is one of your top choices, put in the extra work, let them know. Think about all that work that you've put into your high school for 4 years, all those late nights studying SATs, ACTs, everything. And it's a little bit more effort to just let a school know with an email or a call that, hey, I'm actually really interested. This isn't just a throwaway application for me. I love it. Fantastic.
And I also put
Yeah.
in my application in the extra information session. This is something you told me to do. Like I basically wrote another supplement, which is kind of a hack because it's like there's only one supplement at Vanderbilt, but I basically wrote about like my interest in the sciences and like also just like how I like that like they're also have the opportunity to like interdisciplinary education through the different schools and stuff like that. So it was something like I definitely recommend at your top. Like you don't want to do that everywhere, but your top schools and stuff.
Yeah, and I hope you're spot on. And again, for the viewers, they'll see when we splice into my advice several months ago. I put that in there that the additional information section is there as almost a cheat code if you can use it, but you've got to use it well. And it's a great opportunity to not only tell a specific school that they're your number one, but also to kind of identify what we talk about often, which is that path. What path are you taking from high school into college, and how are you going to benefit the college? And it sounds like with your additional information section, you did both of those things, right? You made it very clear Vanderbilt's your top choice. You, in essence, wrote another Vanderbilt supplement there. And then you also made it clear what your path would be. If accepted to Vanderbilt, you have an idea of how you're going to add to their community.
Mhm.
I love it. Awesome. And now you're off to Vandy for 4 years. I am jealous. I will be on campus in the fall for my 10-year reunion, which makes me feel very old, but
That's
we'll
crazy.
certainly meet up on campus. Coffee is on me, and I look forward to obviously hearing about your 4 incredible years there.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. I'm going to stop recording now. That was awesome. Thank you.